Hello, world. Here's the Pod Layer team again, doing what we do, tracking the Mojo phenomenon, the human quality phenomenon, and sharing the insights we get and also the methodology we use. Today, we're actually focusing on voice training. We're doing some catch-up work with Glenn. So I am Nai Coach, and with me is Nai Glenn, and we are doing L2 stuff, I think, Mojo Dojo, the kind of basic introduction to some of the key bubbles. I think we're about halfway through that, so we'll go ahead and just keep on trucking. Alrighty, so I think the last one I have noted here was writing. So we're going to sports next.
Right. We're on Mojo Dojo, or is it Mojo Journalism?
Mojo Journalism.
Right. Okay.
And the beat right now is sports.
Okay. Music arts, comedy, writing, sports. All right. So I'll just read it, I guess, then.
Sure.
Sports, the most represented innate natures in general are the Naiji, Jinai, and Vijai, which show up in most sports. In sports with noticeable military crossovers such as football, soccer, hockey, racing, and so on, there's a substantial increase in the amount of Zinai, Vizi, and Zivi in the mix. With extreme sports, the Naiji is the most represented by a wide margin. When it comes to coaching, it is usually the Vizi or Zinai. If it is a team sport, and often Naiji, when it comes to coaching solo sports. Yeah, when it comes to coaching, it's usually the Vizi and Zinai if it's team sports, and Naiji when it comes to solo sports, right?
All right. If you got any questions, go ahead and ask. If not, go ahead and process at your own pace and start when you're ready.
Awesome. I'm just going to go over the beat. Right. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but it's my dad coughing.
What's that?
Can you hear that coughing?
A little bit. It's not bad.
All right, okay. All right, I think I have this. All right, so when it comes to sports in general, the Naiji, Jinai, and Vizai tend to show up quite a lot, just generally speaking. When it comes to sports that have more of a military crossover, such as hockey, soccer, racing, football, that sort of thing, the Zinai, the Vizi, and the Zivi tend to show up more, and they tend to get more into the mix as well. When it comes to extreme sports, the Naiji tend to be quite dominant in that. When it comes to coaching, team sports tend to be very dominated by the Vizi and the Zinai. And when it comes to more solo sports, it tends to be mostly Naiji.
Boom. Nicely done. All right. Next up is institutions of power.
All right. Institutions of power. When it comes to institutions of power, the demographics are quite consistent. The main demographic for law and military are the Zinai and Vizi, particularly in the leadership positions that available public media
You
I think
okay?
there might be a word missing there, I think.
Ah, okay.
Right.
So here, which
Particular
word? Which sense is that?
it's the second one. The main demographic starts with that. For law and military are the Xeni and Visi, particularly in the leadership positions that available public media. So
The have. Gotcha.
yeah. When it comes to politics, it is the Xeni, Viji, and Visi, with the notable exceptions of a few prominent Naiji. With business, it is again the Xeni, Viji, and Visi, but with the notable addition of a few high-profile Naiji, Nijai, and Nizai. All right, let me see if I can do this one. So when it comes to the institutions of power, when it comes specifically to, there has several sub-bubbles in it, but when it comes to the area of law and politics or law and military, it tends to be strongly dominated by the Visi and Xeni, which tend to be more in the public eye, I guess you could say. When it comes to the more uh, political area of the institutions of power, that tend to be strongly dominated by the Xeni, Viji, and Visi, with a few prominent and notable Naiji, such as Barack Obama, for example. When it comes to the area of business, it tends to be strongly dominated again with the Xeni, Viji, and Visi, but there's also some exceptions there as well with the Naiji, Nijai, and Nizai.
Damn. Crushing.
Awesome.
Next up, science and technology.
All right. In the areas of science and technology, at least those with a pop culture presence, the main demographic is Naiji, Zaini, Nizi, Nizai, Nijai, and Zinai. Areas emphasizing invention tend to have higher levels of Nizai, Nijai, and Zaini. Areas emphasizing project leadership tend to have higher levels of Naiji, Zinai, and Nizi.
You know what? I'm thinking on this, Glenn,
Mm-hmm.
as you go through, that I think this was made when I hadn't gotten to the STEM as much with Mitchell. But now that
Okay.
I have, I actually think it's quite surprising, and this may change in the future, but I think the NIZ doesn't really show up a lot here.
So not include the Nizi?
Yeah, in both the lines, the first line and the last line.
Sure. Anything else? Any additions maybe? No, nothing?
Not that I'm aware. I think those are the ones. Um,
All right. That's an interesting thing. Nizi, I would expect them to be,
so would I.
yeah, but I guess not.
Actually, there is one. Now I think of it. You know what? I'm glad you asked that. Actually, the one literal that shows up here is the Vaiji.
I was just thinking that, actually.
So yeah, so let's put that at the end of both. for the first line, and then the
And the
last
second line.
Yeah,
All right.
about project leader.
So omit the Naizi and add in the Vaiji at the end.
Correct.
All right, cool.
Yeah, we saw some of it in the fitness bubble as well. The Vaiji, when it gets in certain like medicine areas, they can be doing quite a lot of invention there.
Hmm. I remember actually there was also a Jaini that was red. She was in.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
That's been more of an
what
anomaly.
exact.
Yeah, but I mean that does happen for sure. A little bit more of an anomaly. The Vaiji actually, they're pretty consistent in cutting edge stuff in the areas of science and nutrition and chemistry.
Mhm. Right, there's three lines actually. There's a general line,
Right. Then there's
then there's specifically the invention, and then there's the project leadership.
yes.
So
So
the invention one, I'm guessing, doesn't get touched, right?
that's right. That's right.
All right,
But
cool.
the first and third that had the Naizi in it, that'll get taken out and put the Vaiji in.
All right. Okay, I think I might have this. Okay, I'm going to attempt this. All right. So in the areas of science and technology, in general, they tend to be very strongly dominated, especially when it comes to the pop culture in the media, as far as what's being shown is with samples that have enough media footage out there in the world. There tends to be lots of Naiji, Zaini, Nijai, Nizai, Zinai, and Vaiji that show up. When it comes to the area of invention, it tends to be quite strongly dominated by the Nizai, the Nijai, and the Zaini. And when it comes to project leadership, that tends to be an area that favors a lot of Naiji, Zinai, Vaiji, and yeah, I think that's it.
You got it. Nicely done.
All right,
Okay, so there are some updates on the next bubble as well.
cool.
So let's see. Okay, so there's three kind of lines that have Mojos in them. So the first line, we're just talking to the main ones.
Okay.
If you could add in Jai V.
Okay, at the end?
Wherever, but yeah. But yeah, end would be good.
Okay.
But there, and then where it talks about the high fashion, right? It says Zaini.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make that Jinai and Zaini.
All right.
And then for pinup modeling, where it says Vijay,
Yeah.
let's make that Vijay and Jai V.
All right. So Jinai Saini, Vijay Jaivi, and then Jaivi is also in the first line as well. All right. Okay, so let me just read it out once, I guess. In the area of modeling, most of the data we have collected is regarding female samples, as male models don't command the same kind of attention that female models do, and thus have much less of the kind of video media we need to do our work. The female innate natures that are most represented in modeling are the Jinai, Naiji, Zaini, Vijay, and Jaivi. There are variations on the trend based on genres. For example, there is an increase of Zaini and Jinai in high fashion modeling, an increase of Vijay and Jaivi with pinup modeling. With models that are known for their specific personality, the demographics are very similar to that found in acting and music. Often it is the very same people. So yeah, that makes sense. The one that comes to mind is what is that? The Brad Pitt when he does that one
Yeah.
oh man, that one got a lot of bad press, but I don't know what even that was, but I just know that was like a funny thing.
It happens.
Yeah, yeah. All right. All right. So in the bubble of modeling, there tends to be a lot more female samples that are represented in there, and they tend to have a lot more samples, in respect to them as compared to the male models. So, and that's why we don't, Podler doesn't really have too much as far as to give when it comes to the male models, because there's just so much media and footage and such a high degree of weight that's given to the female models. So most of the data that we have thus far is on the female models, although the male models are obviously still there. But yeah, so when it comes to the female innate natures that show up in modeling the most, they tend to be the geni, the zyni, the naiji, I think too, right? The geni, naiji, zyni, vijay, and jai. Is that check?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. When it comes to the area of high fashion, those tend to be dominated mostly by Geni and Zaini. And when it comes to pinup modeling, that tends to be strongly representing the Vijay and the Jai V mojos. When it comes to modeling that has a specific uh, favoring towards a person's personality, it tends to favor mostly the same kinds of mojos that tend to show up strongly in acting and music in general. And usually it is the same people, like Brad Pitt, for example.
Indeed. Or like, a lot of the Nizai, for example, they don't show up as much in modeling, but there's quite a few actresses that
Ah, yeah,
show up in modeling, but they kind of like got no more in acting, and then it kind of carried over.
right.
Elizabeth Hurley and so forth, and McDowell. All right, let's do medicine, psychology, spirituality, and religion.
All right. No updates here?
I don't believe so.
All right. So, in the areas of medicine, psychology, spirituality, and religion, I guess you can call this empster.
Right?
The most represented innate natures are the Naiji, Nijai, Vaiji, Jaini, and Zaini. In traditional religious and medical practices, the Vaiji is overwhelmingly represented, with the Naiji and Nijai to a much lesser degree. In more progressive spiritual and holistic health practices, the Naiji, Nijai, and Jaini are the most represented. When it comes to a very scientific understanding of the most profound spiritual issues such as AI, cloning, transhumanism, the singularity, psychedelic experience, and so on, the Naiji and Zaini have the most well-known public figures in pop culture. Okay. All right. So when it comes to the areas of medicine, spirituality, religion, and psychology, there tends to be a strong representing of the mojos, which are known as the Naiji, Nijai, Vaiji, Jaini, and Zaini. When it comes to the more religious areas, those tend to be very strongly dominated by the Vaiji, with the Naiji and the Nijai being more represented a little bit less than the Vaiji. Not a little bit less, probably a lot less.
A lot less, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like they tend to be the minority basically. When it comes to more holistic spiritual practices and I guess
Okay.
you could say like angles and stuff like that, those tend to be representing more of the previously mentioned romantic mojos, excluding the Jinai, so the Naiji, the Nijai, and the Jaini. When it comes to more of the scientific area of these various bubbles, like they tend to be more strongly represented by the Naiji and the Zaini. So we're talking about like AI, transhumanism, the singularity, psychedelics, and stuff like that. That tends to be much more representing of those two mojos.
Cool. Nicely done. All righty.
Cool.
I listed the last one, and then you've got this done, which is the service industries.
All right. So, in the area of service industries, particularly restaurants, bars, and coffee shops, where it is easy to observe people for our research, the most represented innate natures are the Nijai, the Vijay, Jinai, and Jivai. In more mainstream establishments, it is the Vijay, Jivai, and Vaiji. In more indie establishments, it is the Nijai, Jinai, and Naiji. When it comes to managerial positions within this context, it is the Jinai, Jivai, Naiji, and Vaiji. However, it is worth noting that indie coffee shop owners are usually Nijai and to a lesser extent the Naiji. Ah, so the owners tend to be Nijai. That's cool.
Not quite sure what that is.
The Z, I think, would make them a little bit more comfortable with that.
That's what my guess is, yeah.
Yeah. Naiji would probably want to be doing it for like it's the cause, like not that Nijai are not a part of the cause and stuff like that, but it's sort of like
Yeah. Also, I think
yeah.
if you run a coffee shop or anything like that, I think it oftentimes takes a bit of catering to a wide variety of interests and appetites, and sometimes
Yeah.
not you can find that challenging.
Mm-hmm. Tend to be more like just like this is the way these are things a few simple things that are like the way that it's supposed to be as opposed to catering to many different tastes and stuff. I get it. That makes sense. Right, so it seemed to be 5 points. I think I have it. All right, so the next bubble is the service industries, which includes bars, clubs, indie shops, and that sort of thing. And when it comes to in general, those tend to be strongly represented by the Jinai, Jivai, Nijai, and Vijai. Probably with the adroms or the adaptives coming first there, and I think also the Naiji as well. When it comes to the more mainstream versions of these bubbles, they tend to be more dominated by the Vijay, Jivai, and Vaiji. When it comes to the more indie bubbles, those tend to be more strongly represented by the Nijai, the Jinai, and the Naiji. When it comes to the more uh, managerial positioning angle to it, those tend to be more strongly represented by the Jinai, Jivai, Naiji, and Vaiji. And but it's also worth pointing out that when it comes to the indie club or indie coffee shops and such, those tend to be strongly represented or strongly owned by Nijai and to a lesser extent the Naiji.
Sweet. All right. Nice. Crushed that. We still have plenty of time to go. All right. So we're going to go ahead and sign off, and then I will get back with you for the principles. Sound good?
All right, sounds good.
All right. See you in a second.